next speakers are going to be bringing a breath of fresh air. Something I find missing in the conversations like this is pragmatism. It is honesty, it is simplicity, it is less theory and more action. And this is exactly what this next conversation is about. It is a fast, no slides conversation on what is working right now, what is not, and how we can keep IP and talent in Switzerland and avoid the brain drain. So how do we close the capital gap? How do founders go from early stage to scale up faster, smarter, stronger? To unpack all of this, we have three incredible speakers. We have Andrew Reid, who is the partner and startup director at Microsoft. We have lawyer and entrepreneur at Wenger Vieli, Christian Wenger. And we have CEO of Deep Tech Nation, Joanne Sieber. Let's give them a round of applause.
Nice place to be.
Ready?
Always.
Yeah, hello everyone. Also a very warm welcome from us three this afternoon. I hope you had a wonderful time so far. We actually, thanks for the introduction here, cover the interesting topic, growing Switzerland's deep tech future. And I hope we have an interesting discussion. So, as you all know, Switzerland has mastered the art of discovery. In fact, we are leading in Switzerland in patents, talents, and of course also in groundbreaking innovations. And in fact, actually, Switzerland has been ranked as the #1 innovation nation globally. But the hard part starts once the research ends, as you probably all know, turning that science into enduring companies that are successful. And in my view, personally, that's where the prosperity of a country is made or where it's lost. So a couple of insights from our side, based on the Swiss Deep Tech report that we published in the middle of the year, I would like to share. So 60% of all Swiss venture capital money goes to deep tech, and that's the highest in the world. Tiny Switzerland, right? Per capita, this ranks us as #1 in Europe and #3 globally after, you might have guessed, US and Israel. And deep tech funding has grown 6 times in the last 10 years, reaching almost 2 billion in 2024, and we will project to hit over 2.3 billion in this year. And of course, rapid growth in the last decade. The value of Swiss deep tech startups are worth over $50 billion US. So this is 20 times as much since 2015. Now, enough number crunching. Andrew, I would really like to know, since you have been involved in the Swiss startup ecosystem since years, does this cover in the numbers also what you have been experiencing?
I think that's as you say, that's very much looking at it from a numeric perspective. But I think if you look at the landscape in Switzerland, we're really in a truly unique position. I think if you look at it in terms of the density of customers, the availability of customers in Switzerland, that's a huge benefit and a huge opportunity. And we've seen a change since COVID in the way the enterprise customers are prepared to engage, are prepared to work with innovative companies to actually get competitive differentiation, to get speed of product to market. They're prepared to explore. I used to joke about it, I think when I first started the startup motion with Microsoft in Switzerland, that every Friday afternoon, once a month, the chief exec would put jeans on and say, I do innovation. To now we're in a situation where we actively see the largest companies across Switzerland engaging and contracting with very early stage companies to get speed of advantage in terms of differentiation, in terms of competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. Nice. And not to forget the IMDb report, which I think was published in the last couple of days, about this is the number one competitive nation in the world, which
Wonderful.
is the place to be.
Thank you. What about you, Christian?
I think we had, in the past 30 years, a great development. And I think when I started my career, I'm a lawyer by hobby, and everybody was laughing when I said, okay, I deal with startups. It was not known. I think today, a graduate from any high school, university, has the option to start a startup, which is a great, great development. And I think this is a good fundament. However, there is still a lot to do.
Absolutely. I'm taking that point from you to move on maybe to the lesser fantastic sides, as we have now heard about Switzerland. A lot of great things, actually what makes Switzerland truly unique. We see this. But yeah, now after praising Switzerland, now maybe a bit of a reality check, and where Switzerland is basically dropping the ball. So I would like to kick this one off. When we talk to founders, one thing that they tell us repeatedly is that when you're raising growth capital beyond Series A, it feels like swimming upstream, right? So, and the data underlines this actually. Over 85% of Swiss deep tech venture capital funding comes actually from international investors. So at the point when actually it truly matters also for, again, prosperity of a country, somehow Swiss investors just do not seem to want to play on that field. Now, circling back to you, Christian, what's behind that? Like, is it an investor's mindset that's missing? Is it regulation? Is it just the lack of domestic big funds? What is it?
I think it's a bit of all. We certainly have enough domestic funds. In pension funds, we have in Switzerland more than 1 billion, so the funds are here. But we take them out of the system systematically, and I think we don't have the culture of venture capital. And, the United States, they are maybe 30, 40 years ahead of us, so it takes some time to get there. And we don't have when I started, we didn't have a venture capital firm in Switzerland. Now we have around 20. So this part is done, early stage, and now we wait for the growth. And you and I, we are working on several projects to cover this problem. And I'm positive that we find somewhere a solution. And one point which is, I always say to everybody also here, we have to be engaged politically to support our innovation and startup industry. We don't have a lobby. We are not agriculture. We are not pharma. We are a young industry. But, the ones who believe in it, they have to be engaged. And I think there we also have to do some work.
Fully agree. What is your take, Andrew?
I can't comment on the political piece, but I'm very much aware of the work that's being driven in that to actually unlock and access that. I think there is a way in which, as a founder, there is a significant difference in terms of the way that people present themselves when it comes to dealing with the international investors. And I liken it to, and I think I've discussed it with you in the past, is you get very much the US-centric approach, which is, I'm going to put a person on Mars. That's my aspiration, and everything stops at the person on Mars. I think in Switzerland, the time tends to be a far better engineered solution, whereas I'm going to put a person on Mars, and if I can't quite make Mars, then we'll do the moon. If we can't make the moon, we'll go for low Earth orbit, and if we can't make that work, we'll go for the top of the Jungfrau. I think, so you end up with actually, and we're seeing this when I look at the portfolio of companies that we've worked with over the years, that the quality of the product that comes through by the time it's ready to go for later stage funding is in many ways is superior to what we see out of the competitive nations in terms of Israel and the US.
Maybe just briefly for everybody to understand You just mentioned, you've been involved, Microsoft has been involved in the journeys accompanying startups, founders. What exactly is it, what you do, you, Andrew, and of course Microsoft?
So Microsoft is here, we're here, we don't provide money, we don't invest. Well, so if you look at it, the four things that every startup needs, it's time, money, access to customers, and access to an ecosystem. I'm taking the technology piece off the table because we're not going to get into that type of debate. So we can't provide time, but what we can provide access to is we can provide access to people. And we readily network all of our founders across the whole of the organization, not just in Switzerland, but globally, in terms of if there's customers or people within a customer base that people want access to. In terms of money, we don't put cash in because I think as soon as we start to do that, you start to dilute and confuse people in terms of where your interest is. But we provide credits. So we provide credits in terms of, we take people's OPEX off the table. So that's the way of feeling back. So, we're giving people time, we're giving people money, we're giving people access to customers, and then we actually actively drive the community in terms of forward, in terms of what we can do, in terms of sharing ideas and sharing experience.
Nice. So we have started now maybe a bit the lesser, or points where we are not as good as Switzerland, with not enough basically capital deployed into venture capital. We understand the journey that also Microsoft supports. Are there maybe any other points where you're observing where you say, okay, here Switzerland really needs to step up the game?
I think the one that I would call out is, if I look across the region, the speed at which there has been from our joint and our shared customer base, the adoption of generative AI and the use of generative AI, I jokingly refer to it as that balance between carbon and silicon. There's been a acknowledgement that there is a shortage of skills, that everyone's under competitive cost pressure, and so the use of technology to differentiate becomes very strong. And I think that creates an opportunity and creates a gap that we're seeing founders drive into in terms of as a market. And I think that creativity, that innovation piece is absolutely the heart of Switzerland.
Yeah, I think we live today definitely in a great environment with lots of opportunities, and we have the technological backbone for it. What I think where we also lack is in the boldness of mindset, that we have people who not dream of the moon and not of the Mars, but, whatever, Jupiter, or, really think big, and also be able to execute big. And I think here we don't have, the traditional Swiss, and many foreigners coming to Switzerland, they're technological oriented. They want to make a good product first rather than develop a big market. And here we have to work on the mindset as well. Mm-hmm. And having also creating role models. Here we are also, if we compare Switzerland now with 20 years ago, we didn't have any success story. Mm-hmm. Today we have some of them, and we have to showcase.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Absolutely.
we've got some, if I can, because I think Christian, you raise a really good point, is watching companies start, you see people starting as friends. This is a business venture. And I think there's a couple of expressions that I really like is, as you go through, there's always that reflection of what got you to here isn't going to be what gets you to the next stage. The team that gets you off the ground is not necessarily going to be the team that gets you to global and international scale. That's a piece of recognizing that as you go through and as you evolve as a business, you have to constantly be learning, constantly receptive for new ideas. And it's that one of you either change the people or you change the people. And that one of being aware of that, it's not a popularity contest. You're building a business for the future.
Nice. So I actually take a question that's coming from the audience. Thank you very much. So to summarize it really, what is it actually what it takes to be a winner, to be actually the really successful startups? What does it take? So we heard now it obviously needs the right team. It needs to be not only product, it also needs to be the market. It needs to be international. We heard that already. What else is there? What are really these patterns that you are observing since years? What differentiates the winner from maybe the average?
That's a good question because it's a broad question, but you know, timing is of essence. I can give you just an example. When I studied in the States 30 years ago, I was one of the first students dealing with internet and internet law at that time. And I came back and I started, you know, I want to make an online law firm called commoditylaw.com, which offers online legal services. That was 30 years ago. It was a little bit at the wrong time. And now I still deal with the same topic, but now it's the right time, probably, you know. So timing is absolute of essence, and you need endurance, you need focus, you need excellent execution, you need passion, you need drive, energy, and you need a strong belief that you can change the world to a better.
Nice. Anything to add?
One expression, I'm totally with you. I think you've beautifully articulated. You've got to have that hunger, and I think you've got to drive for. And I think use a quote from Steve Jobs that I absolutely love: is you have to be super clear. Is what's your dent in the universe? Because ultimately, that's what it's going to be.
Amazing. Okay, so to wrap this up, looking also at the time, so we have discussed for now where Switzerland is strong, where maybe the gaps are, just touched that a little bit, and of course how or what a winner looks like, right? What's the condition? So now I'm a big believer in personal responsibility. I think it's always easy to say, you know, others should do X, Y, Z, so I can succeed or I can move forward. So I would like to make this a little bit more personal and say, okay, very concretely, you know, to say what can I do to move the needle, Andrew, so over the next 12 months to help Switzerland not only remain a world leader in innovation as we started discussion today, but also build the future global market leaders with Swiss roots. What is it what you're going to do and or Microsoft is going to do?
So I'm going to make it actually what I'm going to do rather than what Microsoft's going to do, because I think Microsoft will continue to drive its program forward. I'm going to continue to talk about one thing that really worries me about to maintain and keep your competitive edge and your competitive differentiation, which is about security. And for me, the stage you're at now, starting out, is please think about security. And I'm going to keep on coming back to this every time you see me, every time you hear me. And I use the example of Ledger, a French unicorn. In 2020, they lost 1 million email addresses of customers. 1 million email addresses went out the door because they hadn't dealt with security. Your intellectual property is the most valuable thing that you have as a startup. Protect it. Protect your customer data and understand it. So I'll keep mentoring, I'll keep coaching, but I'll also keep on telling everyone, think about your security. It's an increasingly challenging world that we operate in out there.
Amazing. Same question for you, Christian.
So twofold. First is I want with you together with Deep Tech Nation, where I'm a board member, to close this funding gap and raise this $500 million or $1 billion Swiss francs for the startup ecosystem, deep tech ecosystem as well. That's one thing. And the other thing is I want to create, I started my new venture builder, and I want to create 4 to 5 new AI-driven companies transforming and hopefully disrupting industries, and I'm brutally motivated and engaged.
Nice. Okay, I'll wrap this up also from my side. So as Deep Tech Nation Switzerland Foundation, we will, as Christian has just mentioned, keep on pushing for a greater engagement of institutional investors in venture capital, more deployment. Of course, this takes time. Not a very patient person, but it does take time, so we do expect to be able to talk about tangible outcomes soon. We will launch Project Switzerland, which addresses the point that you were making before as well about role models to actually create a network system where those who have already managed to build up a successful scale-up, to give back to those who are on their journey to getting there, sharing networks, sharing ambition, and sharing wisdom as well, of course. And we will keep promoting Switzerland, not just as the chocolate, cheese, and I guess mountain country, but also the one that has amazing deep tech success stories here in Switzerland, of course, abroad. And lastly, we will also dig deep into the regulatory framework conditions, because, as you have also mentioned, Christian, it's not just the job, you know, to make money and to make the market leaders. It needs the foundation as well in terms of regulatory, political lobbying too. So we will also dive into that. So with that, we have 16 seconds to spare. I think it's okay. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for having this discussion.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening ahead.